Battle Royales are pretty neat. Sure, they've oversaturated the market now with their Fortnites and the war zones and whatever it is the kids are obsessed about these days. But that's just in gaming. Battle Royales have been around in anime for decades now, long before the video games sort of popularized it. Though I can't say all of them have been all that great or even memorable. They sort of have pretty bad rep today, as the moment you find out an anime is something of a battle royale, your brain immediately switches off from it. They tend to be really edgy. I guess it comes with the genre. But in battle royale anime, the edginess comes with a lot of campiness to it, and it's almost laughable. I guess the success of Future Diary also played a hand in this, as we've seen a rise in more edgier battle royales, and I'm all up for them. Sure, there's a lot of stagnation in the genre, but I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it. However, that isn't the case with Juni Taisen. Juni Taisen, or as it's called in English, Zodiac War, is one such battle royale that really shakes up the formula of what to expect from the battle royale genre, in a way that plays to its strength but also leaves it open to a lot of new problems. With every new way it innovates with its somewhat great writing, it spawns what I would call pretty infuriating moments that come off as trying to be deeper than it's trying to be. In other words, sort of pretentious. So what makes Juni Taisen so great, yet so awful to me? Let's find out. Oh, spoilers by the way. Every 12 years, 12 warriors from 12 noble houses, each based on the 12 animals from the Chinese zodiac, come together at 12 AM to fight a battle royale that lasts 12 hours, where only one of them can come out on top and get that victory royale and get whatever wish they wanted granted. That is the Juni Taisen. I often see it get compared to the Fate franchise since they sort of are the same, with warriors being based off a premise fighting to have their wish granted, except it's a lot edgier and lacks a million different sabers. Juni Taisen does a lot of really cool things that I can't help but love and appreciate what it's trying to do, but at the same time brought a lot of problems that come with straying too far from the genre it sets itself in. So let's get into it. Well, let's kick things off with the first episode. This episode opens up with a lone woman walking through the streets of a deserted city that was pretty much cleared overnight. This is where the location of the 12 Juni Taisen is to be held. As she walks through the city, we get to hear her thoughts and monologue. And as we continue to watch her make her way, we cut to a flashback of her when she was younger, going through the training that would prep her up for the battle royale she's about to engage in. Unbeknown to you, dear viewer, the anime has already set you up, playing with your preconceived notions of how a story progresses. I mean, we've listened to her monologue and now we're seeing a flashback? You immediately drop the conclusion that she's the main character and the person we're going to see be victorious. But even then, something feels off. If going by basic anime character design principles, she doesn't quite look like someone who would be a main character. If anything, she looks like a villain. Even her backstory tries to fake you out. We see her, during what is supposed to be training, kill people with a look on her face that shows that she's not enjoying any of this. So you think maybe she's being forced into this and has no choice but to kill, having her innocence taken away from her. Even watching her hesitate when someone begs not to be killed. Maybe she isn't so bad after all, you think. She goes into battle promising to win, for honor and her family and all that main characters speak, all the while sounding incredibly overconfident. Her father was the winner of the last Juni Taisen after all. She's the boar, the final contestant to show for the Juni Taisen. Even as we get to see the other contestants and one dead body, our focus is still on the boar and her thoughts as she gives comments on all the other warriors. Yeah, definitely main character energy right there. We cut back to another flashback where we find out that her little sister was the one who was actually chosen to represent the boar family, but she didn't like that one bit. So she devises a plan to slowly drive her sister towards insanity. Who would have guessed, making a teenager murder people over and over again would be bad for their mental health. So this culminates in her breaking her sister's psyche until she makes her unalive herself, making her the contestant by default. Uh-oh, that wasn't a very main character thing to do now, was it? From these flashbacks and the way she thinks, we can see how much of a cold and calculating individual she is, analyzing everyone and everything they say. So chaos ensues and the tournament kicks off. And we get into our first fight. The boar, killing bountifully, versus the rabbit, killing psychotically. Side notes, I love this cool little versus screens they do before anyone gets to fight. It makes things feel like a fighting game. So just before the fight starts, she already plans out how the fight is going to play out in her head and sees how her victory is assured. Nothing can go wrong. Except...
You're a brave little bunny, but bravery still isn't enough to be... Someone's helping him?
As a first time watch, this would definitely catch you off guard, considering all the setup and backstory was put into this character only for her to die in that same episode, so it's quite the plot twist. What makes things even better is how she dies. Bor was such a meticulous planner and overanalyzer, so it's pretty ironic how she dies from a completely random and unexpected turn of events not even she could foresee. Remember that dead body from earlier? Well, that's the snake who was killed by the rabbit who is actually a necromantist. Yes, not a necromancer. Which means he can turn whoever he kills into his very own personal zombie, so now he's got the snake and Bor on his side, already being a force to be reckoned with. This is how the anime gets you. You realize that the person you thought was the main character dies in the first episode, so now you have to ask, who is the main character then? Well, that's the great thing about the anime. There isn't a main character. This alone gets rid of one of the major issues the Battle Royale format has. When you have a main character in a Battle Royale, you already know they are going to be protected by the plot, and while there are stakes involved, our main character will often make it out of it, just barely most of the time. This also means we can't really have them die during the run because of that plot armor, so deaths are often relegated to side characters, some of which are friends to the main character, and even though they might not win the game or whatever, they leave it still very much alive. But Juni Taisen throws that out the window in the first episode. Now you're actually free to have favorites and hope they win since this is anyone's game, almost like watching the real thing. And I love this. It frees up your mind and actually makes things a lot more interesting knowing that anyone could drop at any moment. So you get even more invested in the anime. But then something happens. By the third episode, you come to realize the incredibly predictable pattern the anime follows. It goes like this. Introduce a character. Introduce their backstory. They talk about their abilities and hear a bit about their thoughts on all the other combatants. They run into a snag and then they die. By the end of the third episode, you know that if you see a character's backstory, they are most definitely dying in that episode or the next. But hey, at least you don't know whose backstory we're going to see next, right? Wrong. The anime pretty much spoils it from the first episode. This is the Chinese zodiac. See where all the animals are placed, right? Pretty cool, huh? So by the end of episode 3, 3 combatants are gone. The boar, the dog, and the chicken. And technically Snake, but we don't see exactly how he dies until much later. Now, where are they on the zodiac wheel? The boar, the dog, and the chicken. So you can already see who's going to die next. But hey, what if you're one of the people that don't know the zodiac formations so can't figure out who dies next? Well, worry not, the anime has you covered. The ED spoils it too. The sequence in which the characters show up in the ED are also in the order when they die, and by process of elimination, you get to see who gets that victory royale. It's rats, but we'll get into that later. So this goes from a case of wondering who's going to die next to seeing how they die next. And let me tell you, some of them die in very gruesome ways. Like Chicken, who, in her last moments, uses her ability to control birds to command them to eat her. So I'm sure you're wondering, what's the point of watching a battle royale if we already know how it's going to end? Well, I thought the exact same thing too as I watched it. Until I realized, the battle royale isn't the main focus of the anime. In fact, the fights are few and far between. Earlier I mentioned how the formula is introduce a character, they monologue about the other characters, they talk about their abilities, flashback, die. Rinse and repeat. There's a lot more emphasis on the flashback of the characters. In fact, they take up more than half of the runtime. But why is that though? Well, Juni Taisen is more of a character study. Let me explain. War is the central focus of the anime. Every character comes from one of the noble warrior houses that sends off these warriors out to the battlefield for various reasons. They work sort of like hired mercenaries. and they're also recognized by the government, so for them, killing is like super legal under certain conditions. Yeah, it's not all that clear, but just know that the world they live in lets them get away with a lot of the war crimes they commit. The anime makes it clear that war is a bad thing, and shows us how almost every character has been affected by war and their opinions on it. Take Monkey for example. She's a pacifist that goes into war with the intentions of ending them in the most peaceful way possible, serving as a go-between for the two parties involved in the war. She's called by other governments to mediate wars and come up with peaceful resolutions that have the least bloodshed. So her cause is a noble one, but while she's been able to save thousands of lives, there's also been a lot of unintended consequences which have equally led to loss of thousands of lives. Like in one instance where she was able to stop two countries from fighting over land and turning said land into its own independent state, ending the reason for the two countries' war. However, this only caused the two countries to team up and lay waste to the new third party that had risen, leading to a major loss of lives. This weighs on her as while finding a solution, she unintentionally led to the death of even more people. That's depressing stuff. And then there's Tiger, who was thrown into war at a young age with the idea that she was fighting for what was right, only to see the horrific atrocities carried out on the battlefield, shattering her sense of justice and coming to the conclusion that people are just fucked up. There's a lot of really good commentary on the effects of war and every character embodies that in one way or the other. While I love this, I can't help but be annoyed by it. Every episode is dedicated to one character's flashback, with the worst being the dragon and snake, who get two. I guess cause they were twins, so thanks to them, Rabbit doesn't really get a backstory. It brings the show's pacing to a screeching halt. Just as things were about to get intense with two characters about to duke it out, we cut to a flashback on how and why they are the way they are. And seeing this repeated over and over again gets really annoying, even after accepting that the fights aren't the main focus. It just kind of sucked that the character would get hyped up so much only to get taken out by the end of the episode. But this is where I have to give praise to the anime again. The character deaths are pulled off in such an ironic way that goes against their principles, save for Tiger, like how the meticulously planning boar gets taken out by a random unforeseen move. Other characters too, like Chicken, who her whole life has been a conniving, sleazy, backstabbing individual, has her core shaken when met with the genuine kindness of Monkey, kindness that she had never experienced before. This causes her will and conviction to waver, leaving her disoriented when going up against Ox. Or Sheep, who spends most of his time ranking all the others by strength, putting Rat and Tiger at the lowest, only to come across Tiger, not take her seriously and underestimate her, which lets him drop his guard and die instantly by her hands. Or Horse, who strained his body to the absolute limit, acquiring a body hard as steel able to deflect any kind of attack, only to die from the inside due to suffocation while making this hilarious face. There's a lot of nuance in the anime that goes overlooked, probably due to the fact that the presentation is kind of rough most of the time. Like, the anime makes good use of the Chekhov's gun principle. For those who don't know, Chekhov's gun is a principle in writing where details that appear in a story play a role or will eventually play a role in later parts of the story. Basically, if the author goes out of their way to explain something in detail, no matter how insignificant it may be at the moment, it will eventually circle back and play a bigger role in the overall plot's progression. And Juni Taisen has several moments of this during the Battle Royale itself. The best example of this would be during the climax. We're down to Ox, who's facing a grotesque zombified rabbit, and Monkey. Just as he's about to bite it, Rat shows up and in his hands holds a very powerful explosive, strong enough to wipe them all out. Said explosive was made by Sheep, the demolition expert, who got taken out by Tiger. Sheep, as well as the anime itself, tries to make sure that our focus is on said bomb, even though it doesn't show up again until the final moments. Thanks to this, Rat is able to blow them up, put an end to the menace that is Rabbit, and nab that victory royale. Now comes my final gripe with the anime. The final episode centers on Rat after his victory. He gets interviewed by the referee, who is really curious as to how he was able to make it out alive, seemingly unharmed. And then we get the biggest reveal in the whole anime. He has a power that lets him go through different timelines and find the best possible route to take, but only 100 times in one instance. To dumb it down, he's got the ability to quick save and load 100 times until he can save again. It's a pretty busted ability. And in all those 100 timelines, this was the only one he survived. While it's a cool ability, he experiences every single thing that happens, which means he's experienced death 99 times to reach this one path. So after all this, he's asked what he wants to wish for, and he can't decide on what he wants, and takes the whole episode to think it over. It's a big deal after all, cause he just gets one wish. But surprisingly enough, wishing for more wishes is actually allowed. So after thinking, and thinking, and thinking, even recalling the other timelines where he had teamed up with all the other combatants to find out their wishes, which actually serves to humanize the characters a bit more and add another layer to them, he finally decides on a wish. His wish is to forget everything that happened in that tournament. What? For the life of me, I couldn't understand the reason behind such a wish. I mean, why would he wish for something like that? I don't know, maybe I'm too dumb to understand the reasoning behind this wish. Maybe it's a reference to the zodiacs or something like that? People in the comments, if you understand the reasoning behind this wish, let me know, cause I really need help understanding all of this. Oh, and while you're there, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content. But for some reason, I felt really let down by this wish. It pretty much invalidated the last 11 episodes, making it feel like a waste of time. Maybe that was the point. I don't know, I guess I wanted something more out of it since it was hyped up to be such a big deal. For me, this is the ending that makes Juni Taisen hard to recommend to other people, because I honestly feel like it isn't worth it. It's really hard to enjoy, especially on a first time watch, and with such a meh first experience, you wouldn't be inclined to watch it again after all that. But if you do have the time to rewatch, it makes the experience a lot better when you're able to pick up on a lot of the subtext later throughout the anime. So I'd say just watch it if you feel like killing time. I may have spotted a few of the plot points, but I also skipped out on a lot of the things that happen because there are just so much detail packed into it. Besides, the anime itself spoils you, so I guess it's no big deal. So yeah, that's Juni Taisen, a beautiful waste of time. As always, this has been your very favorite slice of bread. Stay toasty.